What's up, y'all? Welcome back to the General Show YouTube channel. So today I'm going to be doing my NHL season predictions, and I'll be telling you guys who I think is going to win the Stanley Cup, where I think teams are going to finish, and all the NHL season award winners. I'm not going to be showing you that, but I'm going to be telling you guys who I think is going to win it. So without further ado, if you guys enjoy NHL content, this is the place to be. And like I said, without further ado, let's get started into the predictions. So first off, we have the Anaheim Ducks, and I personally feel like they're going to miss the playoffs as they have a really young core and a lot of aging veterans that aren't going to be as amazing this season, I don't think. I don't think Ryan Strome's worth the contract that they signed him for. And also, John Klingberg is not the defenseman he once was. He still put up points, but they need guys that could stay at home and be really good defensemen. And they do have Jamie Drysdale, of course. He is a great player. Like I said, I'm just looking at my phone to make sure that I don't forget anybody. They might have a line of Trevor Zegras, Mason McTavish, and Troy Terry. That's a great line, but it's very young and not seasoned. And to make the playoffs, you guys need some experience. I feel like 4 or 5 years when they add all the players that they have. They have so many other players that they have. I'm just looking at the team right now. It looks really promising in the future. And they also have a really good goalie in John Gibson if they decide to keep him. But other than that, I don't feel like they are going to make the playoffs. All right, next we have the Arizona Coyotes, and I definitely feel like they're definitely lottery pick. I don't even know if they had their first round pick, but their team is not very great, if I'm being honest. And I know they are a rebuilder. I know they don't have the assets that most teams have, but they do have a lot of they do have a very bright future with Barrett Hayton and Connor Geekie and Dylan Guenther and Liam Kirk. A lot of great players that they have. They also still have Clayton Keller. I'm just, like I said, just making sure I don't forget anybody. And they also have Jacob Chikrin, which I believe that they are going to trade. But with those players, I feel like they might be competitive. But I feel like it's not going to take. It's going to take. Basically, it's all going to boil down to is how good their goalies play. And I don't feel like Vejmelka is going to play as good as he did last season. I know his stats weren't good, but he really did keep Arizona in the games last season. I feel like they're going to need a bona fide starter, and they don't have that. But that's why I honestly feel like they're going to be lottery picks. All right, so next we have the Boston Bruins, and I feel like they're definitely playoff contenders because they do have an amazing core of players with Bergeron, Brad Marchand, the newly acquired David Krejci back. They have Pastrnak. I don't know if I said Pastrnak already, but they have a great goalie in Jeremy Swayman. They have Charlie McAvoy. They have Mike Riley, who's actually played well, Matt Grizzlchek, and they have a bunch of players coming up like Fabian Lysell. And they also acquired Pavel Zacha, who could be a very good depth scorer. So I definitely feel like Buffalo. I definitely feel like Boston definitely has the playoff chances. Do they have Stanley Cup chances? I don't believe so, because I definitely feel like them missing Brad Marchand and Charlie McAvoy for an extended period of time is definitely going to hurt them. But at the same time, I feel like Swayman and Ulmer can definitely hold the fort and definitely make some type of playoff run. Next, we have the Buffalo Sabres, and personally, I'm not even going to cap. I 100% think the Buffalo Sabres do have a chance to make the playoffs. I'm not going to put them in playoff contenders, but they do definitely have a chance to make the playoffs. They add so much good talent. Tage Thompson, Owen Power, Jack Quinn, Rasmus Dahlin. They have I don't know. I don't remember their goalies. I think it's Malcolm Subban. He played well last year. I can't even lie. He did play well. Alright guys, a little bit of a mess up in the last little bit there. I realized that they signed Eric Comrie and Craig Anderson, so those are probably going to be the starting goalies, not Malcolm Subban. Just wanted to clear that up before I continue the video. But I don't remember their goalies. They also have an upcoming goalie, Ukko-Pekka Luukkonen. He's a very good goalie. I don't know if that's how you say his name. Not trying to butcher it. But they have Matthew Savoie. They have so many good players that I feel like if they do come up, maybe not this year, but next year, they're definitely going to be a powerhouse. Buffalo has a very bright future. If they don't make the playoffs this year, I 100% think they will make the playoffs next year. Guaranteed. Coming from my mouth right now, I can guarantee they're going to make the playoffs next year, if not this year. So next, we got the Calgary Flames, my personal second favorite team after the Maple Leafs, and I definitely feel like they're definitely Stanley Cup contenders. They got better in a season that they lost Matthew Tkachuk, Sean Monahan, and Johnny Hockey. How does that even happen? They lost their 3 core players. I know Sean Monahan has a few injuries and he's not really a core player anymore. But at the time of when they were in the playoffs, when they were a young team, those three, well, not Matthew Tkachuk because he wasn't really in the league yet, but like those two players were cornerstone players, and then Matthew Tkachuk was coming into his own as a cornerstone player, and they ended up getting Jonathan Huberdeau, Nazem Kadri, and Mackenzie Weegar. That bolsters amazing defense that has Shillington, it has Hanifin, it has I don't even remember all the defensemen that they have, but they have so many defensemen. They also bolstered the forward core with Elias Lindholm. They have a bunch of players, Mangiapane, like all those players, and it's just like I feel like they definitely have a chance to make the Stanley Cup. And I also have an amazing goalie in Jacob Markstrom. So that's personally why I feel like Calgary has a great chance of making the Stanley Cup. Now, my Stanley Cup champs. I'm going to be 100% honest with you. My Stanley Cup champs are Carolina. I'm not going to pick, I'm going to pick the Leafs. No, I'm not picking the Leafs. Because I know the Leafs aren't going to make the Stanley Cup. If they do, great. If they don't, I'm not that type of Leaf fan. I'm not going to lie. If they make the Stanley Cup, great. If they win a round, I mean, please. But I'm not going to be like, oh my God, Leafs to go into like S tier. They're going to like win everything. I'm not like that. So I fiercely feel like Carolina is going to win because they just have an amazing forward core, like highlighted by Sebastian Aho, Andrei Svechnikov, freaking Martin H.S., whole bunch of defensemen, Slavin. They just got Brent Burns, Brett Pesce. They have just so much. I don't even remember all their players. And then if they have a healthy Frederik Andersen, like they're just one of the best teams by far in the NHL. Like it's not even close. They have a possibility of having 2 starting goalies with Antti Raanta. I know he's not as good as he used to be, but they have Antti Raanta and they have Frederik Andersen. Like that's like Antti Raanta could start on most teams, and they have him as a backup. And next I have the Chicago Blackhawks, and they are definitely lottery picks. They're already trying to trade Jonathan Toews, and they're already trying to trade Patrick Kane. And if they do, it's kind of just like that's it for their franchise. Like I don't see Seth Jones being a savior, like not at that cap hit. And then they brought in guys like Max Domi. They brought in Andreas Athanasiou. They brought back Colin Blackwell, is a very good player. He played great for the Leafs. But I just don't feel like that's going to be good enough. Like I just don't feel like they have the chance to make the playoffs. Like I think their first line is Lucas Reichel, Patrick Kane, and somebody. I don't even know. Like I don't think Jonathan Toews is on the first line because like he's more of a defensive forward now. But that's why I feel like they're guaranteed to be lottery picks unless they surprise everybody. They're lottery picks. So now we got the defending Stanley Cup champions, and I do believe that they're definitely going to be Stanley Cup contenders again. They lost a bunch of players. They lost Burakovsky. They lost Darcy Kemper. They lost Nazem Kadri, but they re-signed Valeri Nichushkin. They still have a great defense headlined by Cale Makar and Samuel Girard, Eric Johnson, Bowen Byram. Probably someone I'm missing. But they also have a great forward core of Nathan McKinnon and Mikko Rantanen, Gabriel Landeskog. They still, like I said, Valeri Nichushkin. They still have a bunch of depth. And goalie, it's iffy. Georgiev and Francouz. It's a little bit iffy. But I feel like they're definitely powered by the defense and powered by that offense. They can definitely make another run at the Stanley Cup. Okay, so the next one I have is Columbus Blue Jackets. Columbus Blue Jackets, I feel they definitely are playoff contenders because they definitely do have a great offense with Boone Jenner, Johnny Hockey. They have Patrick Laine, Jack Roslovic. Who do they have in the middle? I don't know many other centers. I'm not gonna lie, but they do have a lot of veteran depth where they do have a chance to make the playoffs. People that have been there before. And then their defense is headlined by Zach Rowensky and a few other players that I don't really remember. I remember every player until I turn on the camera, I swear. So yes, a few of their players. They signed the GOAT, Eric Gudbranson. So that's you already know he's going to be amazing in that. They have Adam Boakfest, they have David Jiricek, a bunch of people for the future, and they also have 2 solid goalies in Jonas Korpisalo and Elvis Merzlikins. I know Korpisalo is probably not going to be there for long as he does want to trade, but I know exactly what Korpisalo is capable of as he stonewalled the Leafs in that series. So I definitely believe that if he wants to, he can be a very solid goalie again and challenge Merzlikins for the job. So the next one we got is Dallas Stars. personally, like, I don't know. They didn't do too much in the offseason. I'm pretty sure the only signing they really had was Mason Marchment. If I'm being honest, they have really good depth. So I feel like they're definitely playoff contenders. But the only problem is that, like, Seguin is not Seguin. I say Seguin. Tyler Seguin is not very consistent anymore. Jamie Benn has lost his consistency and he's pretty much fallen off a cliff compared to what he used to be. Jason Robertson's great. Rupe Hintz is great. Denis Gurianov has not lived up to I wish I could speak English. Denis Gurianov has not lived up to his potential. So they have really good goalies and Jake Ottinger. So Dallas has a bunch of good defensemen like Miro Heiskanen, Thomas Harley, who could be coming up this season. They have Ryan Suter. They have Colin Miller, who's a very good stay-at-home defenseman. And then they have a really good line of Rupe Hintz, Jason Robertson, and Pavelski. Like I said, they have some aging stars. They have some good depth. And I feel like they're definitely going to be playoff contenders. So here's a team that did a lot in the offseason. I definitely feel like they're definitely playoff contenders after what they did because they added Kubalik, they added David Perron, and they added a few other guys that I feel like are definitely going to make them a lot better. They have two very good goalies in Nedeljkovic and Ville Husso. That's already added to a great freaking forward core of Tyler Bertuzzi, Dylan Larkin, Philip Zadina, Lucas Raymond. I feel like they definitely do have a chance to make the playoffs this year. Their defense is a little bit after Moritz Seider. Accommodate for that with their offense because I definitely feel like they're going to be a way better offensive team than they were last year. And definitely a better team than they were a few years ago when they were the worst team of all time, or one of them at least. But I feel like they definitely do have a chance to make the playoffs. So my next team is the Edmonton Oilers, and if I'm being honest, every time you got Connor McDavid, there's a chance you're going to win the Stanley Cup. Like, you got to admit, like, he's one of the best players in the world. I don't believe he's the best by far. I personally don't believe that. And if you guys think I'm stupid, I don't know, man. Like, I personally don't feel like he's the greatest player ever. I feel like that still goes to Gretzky. No matter what anybody says, that's just my opinion. But I'm not going to get into on that. But they do have a possibility of a line of Yamamoto or Puljujärvi, Kane, and McDavid, which is a very stacked line. And then whoever Draisaitl plays with is amazing, probably Hyman or Puljujärvi or Yamamoto. And then they have a third line of possibly Nugent Hopkins, XX. I don't really know too much about their team because, like I said, I'm more of a Leaf fan. I don't really follow too much other teams. But they do have a great freaking lineup of players. I hope they get a little more depth scoring because Tyson Barrie being your third best scorer is not very good. And I hope they also improve on defense. If they can improve on defense, they can honestly get rid of the Carolina Hurricanes here and definitely win the Stanley Cup because they do have a very good goalie in Jack Campbell. I hope they take care of him because we do love Soupy here in Toronto. But like I said, as long as they improve their defense, they're definitely going to be Stanley Cup contenders no matter what because they do have a lot of offense, especially by two players. And as long as, like I said, as long as they get some depth scoring and some defense, they're definitely Stanley Cup contenders in my opinion. Florida Panthers, I can see playoff contenders, honestly. Like, I don't think they're going to have as good of a season last year as they did this year because just because of the Matthew Tkachuk effect. They lost two of their best players, and I just don't feel like Aaron Ekblad is going to be able to cover for the big hole lost in Mackenzie Weegar. And Barkov is great. They did lose Mason Marchment for not much. Like I said, he did get signed in for agency. But I do feel like they are playoff contenders because they do have great depth. They have Anthony Duclair still. They still have Matthew Tkachuk. And they have Alexander Barkov. They still have two good goalies in Bobrovsky and Spencer Knight. And they do have a competent defense. I do feel like they're definitely going to be not Stanley Cup contenders. Definitely not. I definitely do still feel like they're going to be playoff contenders. We got the LA Kings. I feel like they got playoff chances. I definitely feel like they overachieved last year. And I don't know if the aging core of Anze Kopitar and Drew Doughty is going to be able to push them in the playoffs. I definitely feel like they got lucky last year as they just, kind of went on a weak division and ended up skyrocketing to the playoffs. So I feel like they do have playoff chances, but I don't feel like they're going to make it, if that makes any sense. They do have great players. Like I said, they have Quinton Byfield, who's probably coming up this year. They have Sean Durzi on the defense. They have, like I said, Drew Doughty, Anze Kopitar, Adrian Kempe, Alex Iafallo. It all honestly depends on how good their goaltending is, as they have Quick and they have Cal Peterson. If Cal Peterson can outplay Quick, or they just play great together, then I feel like they will be making the playoffs and they will be playoff contenders. But as of now, I just don't really think that they have a chance as much as these teams do. That's just my personal opinion. But yeah, that's why I definitely don't think that they're gonna be playoff locks. Like, these guys, I think, are playoff locks, and then these guys, I think, have a chance to make it. That makes any sense. But obviously, that's what it says here. But so next, we're gonna go with Minnesota. Minnesota, I definitely have Stanley Cup contenders. I'm high on Minnesota, as they do have one of the best offenses in the league, even after losing Kevin Fiala to the LA Kings, which I do think could also make like LA King, like, skyrocket to playoff contenders. But I personally feel like they have such a good offense. If they can continue what they did last year, then there's no doubt in my mind they could be Stanley Cup contenders. They have an amazing goalie in Fleury, and they have Kaprizov. They have Matt Zuccarello. They have Ryan Hartman, who's great. He's played so good. They have a bunch of like really good role players in Jordan Greenway and Eriksson Ek, all those guys. And they have some good defensemen in Matt Dumba and Jared Spurgeon. If Fleury can stand on its head, he can definitely bring them to a Stanley Cup, honestly. Like all these teams, I feel like, are interchangeable with Carolina. Like, no doubt about it. Montreal, I definitely feel like they're going to be better than last year. I don't feel like they're going to be like lottery picks like they were last year, because I feel like Jake Allen could definitely like bring them up a little bit. He's not that bad of a goalie like people say he is. So I definitely feel like they're more in the missed playoffs range, because I definitely feel like with Cole Caulfield under Martin St. Louis, he's definitely going to play a lot better. Nick Suzuki played great last season. As long as they can find someone to like play with them, like maybe Georgia, I don't know how to say his name, Slafalski. That's all I'll say it. If he can play up on the second line or first line, I definitely feel like they have a chance. Like, I'm not even gonna lie, I feel like they do have a chance. And then Brendan Gallagher is getting older, but he's still a very solid player. They have Josh Anderson still, so they added a pretty good defenseman in Michael Matheson, and then they added Kirby Doc, who could be really good, could be really bad. You kind of don't really know about him yet. I definitely feel like they do have the forwards to be competitive. Obviously not make the playoffs, but I just feel like the problem with them is probably going to be their defense, which happens. But yeah, so pretty much I feel like Montreal is going to miss the playoffs, but I feel like they're going to be a lot more competitive than they were last season. Not dead last in the league. Nashville, I do feel them as playoff chances, not playoff contenders. No, I'm gonna have to definitely see them playoff contenders. They had such a good season last year. Judging by how good UC Saros played, I definitely feel like they definitely are playoff contenders. They have a great forward core, Ryan Johansson with Philip Forsberg and Matt Duchene. They have one of the best defensive cores of any team, especially with the addition of Ryan McDonough. They still have Matthias Ekholm. They still have a bunch of players. Like, I definitely feel like they definitely have a chance to make the playoffs. I don't know how far they're going to go. It all depends on how UC Saros plays and how good their defense is, which is usually pretty stacked. But yeah, that's definitely why I feel like Nashville's going to make the playoffs. Quick little side note, guys. I also realized that Nashville also still has Roman Josi, the reigning Norris Trophy winner. So that is another reason why they will be definitely making the playoffs, as he is by far one of the best defensemen in the league. I don't know how I missed that, guys. New Jersey Devils, I feel like they're going to be on the outside looking in, and I feel like they have a chance to make the playoffs, but all really depends on how healthy Jack Hughes can be. And they added a bunch of players. Like, they added Andre Palat, and then they have a few other players. They have a good goalie in Mackenzie Blackwood, but I don't know if he's going to be the full-on guy for the future. So they have a good team. They have a good defenseman in Dougie Hamilton, David Severson, and they have a bunch of good players like Jesper Bratt, Jesper Boakfist. They have a bunch of players that could definitely play up in the lineup. And I feel like they definitely do have a chance to make the playoffs, but I just don't feel like it all really depends on how good Nico Hischier and Jack Hughes play together, and if Jack Hughes can stay healthy. That's just my opinion. And next, we got the New York Islanders. So personally, I feel like with a coaching change, they do have a chance to definitely make the playoffs, but I feel like it's not going to be able to push them over the edge, as they do have two good goalies in Semyon Varlamov and Ilya Sorokin, but I feel like the lack of real good depth on defense, I feel like that's going to hurt them. I feel like their only two really good defensemen are Romanov and they have Noah Dobson. Other than that, they have, well, I guess they do have Adam Pellich and they do have Scott Mayfield too, which are really good defensemen. But I definitely feel like they don't have enough depth in their team for offensive and defensively, which is why they struggled so much last season as the COVID thing hit. But I feel like they definitely do have a chance to make the playoffs this season, because without COVID, I feel they definitely would have been pretty good possibility of making the playoffs, because Matthew Barzal is a great player. Andreas Lee is a good player still. Josh Bailey's still pretty good. Brock Nelson is really good. They added a few guys like Palmieri. They have some grit and Matt Martin and a few other guys. So I definitely do feel like they definitely have a playoff chances, but I don't feel like they're actual playoff contenders yet, as they were really bad last season. Like I said, how much is that of COVID? How much is that of whatever? But like, you can't really judge someone that was like really low in the standings and then just say, okay, we're going to be playoff contenders this year. I know Buffalo, I said the same thing with Buffalo and Detroit, but I feel like they added so much that they do have a chance. So that's why I'm saying that. Next, we got the New York Rangers. I feel like the New York Rangers are definitely Stanley Cup contenders with how good how good of an offseason they had. They added Vincent Trocheck, who could honestly be a really good depth player for them. They have a very good top line of Kreider, Panarin, and Zibanejad. They have a bunch of other players. They have a brewing all-star in Alexis Lafreniere, who could break out this season. They also have a guy who could break out in Kaapo Kakko. And if those guys break out, honestly, they're literally above Stanley Cup contender. They could be one of the best teams of all time. It also really depends on if they can break out. Their defense is pretty solid, and they do have a good goalie. Just a pretty good goalie only. But they do have the Vezina Trophy winner, Igor Shesterkin. And I definitely feel like they do have a chance to possibly win a Stanley Cup if they can keep everything together and actually play well. Now, for definitely the most improved team, we got the Ottawa Senators. I'm going to say playoff chances, as DeBrincat is great, but I just feel like it's going to take a while for them to mesh. And I don't know if this season is going to be the season that they do make the playoffs. I understand, like I said, with Detroit and everything, but I feel like Detroit's just waiting to break out, and they have so many good players. I know Ottawa has good players too, but I feel like their defense is pretty weak, other than Chabot and Sanderson, which Sanderson doesn't really fit yet because we haven't seen him play like a real NHL game in the regular season, so I can't really say he's going to be great. He could just flop, but I do believe he's going to be very, very good. And he's going to be one of the top players with Thomas Chabot. But other than that, their defense is like Artem Zub and Nikita Zaitsev, and I don't believe that's really good enough to make the playoffs. Also, their goaltending could be iffy with Cam Talbot, and then they have Anton Forsberg. I do believe that they could definitely still make it. Don't get me wrong, Cam Talbot is a great goalie, but he's very inconsistent, as he sometimes has a good season, then he has a bad season, good season, bad season, good season, bad season, ever since he became a full-time starter with Edmonton. And like I said, their forwards are really good, like Brady Tkachuk, Drake Batherson, Josh Norris, Tim Stützle, Alex DeBrincat, Claude Giroux, one of their biggest acquisitions. And they do have a pretty good bottom six too. But I just feel like offense isn't enough. Trust me, I'm a Leaf fan, I know. Offense is not enough to carry you, and that's why I feel like they won't make the playoffs. Philadelphia, I do feel like they might not be as bad as people say. They do still have some good players if they can stay healthy. If Ryan Ellis can possibly come back this season, which I don't believe he will, they could still make the playoffs. I don't believe it, though. I don't feel like they're going to be 100% lottery, just sell the franchise, because they are bad, but they do have some good players. They do have Carter Hart, which is still waiting for him to become a star. They do have some good defensemen still. They have Travis Sanheim, they have Ivan Provorov, and they still have guys like Travis Konechny. They still have a guy like Sean Couturier. They still have a bunch of guys like that. They still have Joel Farabee. They still have a bunch of guys. So I still feel like they still have a chance to make the playoffs if everything goes right for them. But I just feel like they're not as good as people set them out to be last year. They were saying that there could be Stanley Cup contenders last year, and this season was literally shit the bed. But like I said, they do still have all the pieces that aren't going to make them literally lottery picks. So that's why I feel like they definitely still have a chance, but I feel like they are eventually obviously going to miss the playoffs. We got Pittsburgh Penguins. I don't believe in the Pittsburgh Penguins as much as people do. I know they have Crosby, I know they have Malkin, I know they have Letang, I know they have Tristan Jarry. That's a great core four to have. But I definitely feel like their age is going to eventually catch up to them, and they don't have the players that they could just plug in just to like make them better. They always usually do it. Like, don't I could look really stupid in like a couple months when they're top of the East. But personally, I feel like this might be the season where they have a chance to make it, but they miss. That's what I personally believe, because I know Gensel's really good, but he's injury prone. Crosby's really good, but he's injury prone. And then Evgeny Malkin's really good, but he could also be injury prone sometimes. And then you have a team of Jason Zucker and Brian Rust as your top two players, and that's not a team that makes the playoffs to me. But if everyone stays healthy, I do feel like they are playoff contenders. So it's kind of like I'm judging off like if everyone stays healthy and if their age eventually catches up to them, which is why I'm saying that they could miss, they could make. That's why I feel like I'm gonna put them in the front, so they're like iffy. You know what I mean? Like if there's another tier, I'd put them like right in the middle here. But I'm just going to put them lower because I just feel like age could catch up to them. That's why I'm putting them lower. San Jose Sharks, I feel like they're going to be bottom feeders. James Reimer is a good starter, and I believe they traded Aiden Hill not that long ago, so I definitely feel like it's either him or Kaapo Kähkönen, and I feel like James Reimer is definitely going to take the starter job from Kähkönen. Their defense is still pretty good with Erik Karlsson and Edward Vlasic. He's still good, but he's not great. And then their forward core is kind of deteriorating with Logan Couture being very old now, even though he's not old in age, but he still plays like an old man. And then they have Thomas Hertl, and they have Timo Meier, and they have Barabanov, and they have William Eklund, who still, like I said, still could be good players, but I just don't feel like I was saying, I just feel like they're not going to have enough firepower to really compete in the West. And I know they were powers for years, but then they got rid of a lot of players, and now like I just feel like they're going to have to rebuild to be like a powerhouse again. Like I remember when the Leafs used to play the Sharks, oh my god, I used to like be so sad because I like it was a guaranteed loss. But now I feel like they're still a hard team to play against, in my opinion, because of their system. But I feel like they're going to lose the close games, and that's going to be the difference of why they're going to be in the lottery or making the playoffs. Like it could be honestly either or to them, because they can either pop off and play great, like James Reimer has like a Vezina season, like most Leafs do after they leave the Leafs, or they can freaking falter and be like to have like 20 points after like 60 games or something like. So then we got the Seattle Kraken. Seattle Kraken, I feel like they're definitely going to miss the playoffs. They did add pretty much all scoring. They didn't really add too much else. They added Burakovsky and they added Bjorkstrand. I definitely feel like that's pretty good additions to a team that was pretty bad scoring. They're definitely going to need some defensive help, as their goaltenders were absolutely trash last season. And I definitely feel like Philip Grubauer is definitely going to play a lot better than he did last season. There's no reason for him to play that bad. Maybe I guess it was because of the pressure of playing for a new franchise, trying to play good. But there's just no excuse for how bad he really played last season. But I feel like they're definitely going to bounce back. Maybe have like a 30 to 33 win season. And they're not going to be like trash like they were last season. That's just what I'm saying. Because they do have the talent, in my opinion. And maybe in a few years, they'll be like the Golden Knights and maybe win the Cup. Or be in the Cup final, maybe. I don't know. But that's just where I think the Kraken are going to be. The St. Louis Blues, I definitely feel like they're definitely playoff contenders. Do I think they're Stanley Cup contenders? If Jordan Binnington plays well, I definitely do feel like they are. Because they do have the offense. They have O'Reilly, they have Shen, they have freaking Tarasenko, they have Kyrou, they have Robert Thomas, they have defensemen, they have Falk, they have Torrey Krug, they have Parenko. Like I said, I definitely feel like the St. Louis Blues definitely have a chance to make the playoffs. Are they Stanley Cup contenders? I don't know, but they're definitely usually the top team in the West, so I'm definitely not going to doubt them. So that's why I'm probably just going to leave them as Stanley Cup contenders, because they do, obviously they're like a fresh off 3 years ago winning the Stanley Cup. So I do believe that they are Stanley Cup contenders. They have mostly the same core from that winning team. So I will say that they are Stanley Cup contenders. That's just me. But so here I'm going to put Tampa Bay where they rightly belong. They didn't lose much. They lost Palat and they lost McDonough, but they still have Vasilevsky, they still have Stamkos, they still have Kucherov, they still have Sorelli, they still have Point, they still have Nick Paul, they still have Killorn, they have Hedman. This team is so deep. I don't even understand how they lost in the finals last season. Like honestly, I personally thought they were a way deeper team than the Colorado Avalanche. But I guess it's just like it just takes time. They played so much hockey recently that they just weren't as consistent as they were. But I definitely feel like they're definitely still going to be good. I don't feel like they're going to be the top team. Like they're usually never the top team anymore, which doesn't make any sense to me with all that talent. But I do think like they're going to be top three in the East. And I do feel like they're definitely going to be Stanley Cup contenders as they always are, because season Vasilevsky and playoff Vasilevsky are two different beasts. And I wouldn't want to face them in the playoffs if I was anybody. Speaking of facing them in the playoffs and getting bounced, talking about the Toronto Maple Leafs, they're going to be Stanley Cup contenders. They have to make it past the first round. And once they make it past the first round, you can basically plan the parade. Obviously, I'm not being serious, but I do believe they are definitely, I'll say, playoff contenders. I honestly am not as high on the Leafs as I usually am because their goalie situation, I do feel like, because they are my favorite team, but I do think that Ilya Samsonov and Matt Murray are definitely going to play well. The top six is a question mark because they don't know who's going to play beside Tavares and Nylander. The first line is still going to be great with Matthews, Marner, and Bunting. But they did add a lot of good players. They added Yarncrook. They added Nicholas Aube-Kubel, who could be pretty good in the bottom six. They added Zach Aston-Reese, who could be good as long as they sign him to the after the PTO. Calle Yarncrook, like I said, is going to be good. They didn't add too much defensive depth, but they did add some guys who could just plug in, like Victor Mete and Jordy Ben. I know they're not great players, but they could just be guys that play if someone gets hurt, like Muzzin, or if our bottom six guys like Liljegren gets hurt, or Hall. But they do have some really, really good depth. Like they added so much to their depth. They added Mulligan, who they already had, but they just re-signed him from the KHL. And then like a line of, like, I'm just going to talk a lot about the Leafs, I'm sorry. And like they have a good shutdown pairing. They have some grit. I feel like this could be a good year for them to possibly win a round. I'm not going to guarantee it because the Leafs and you never know what they're going to do. Next, we got the Vancouver Canucks. I feel like they're going to miss. I feel like they're just going to be on the brink and then they're just going to miss. Because I feel like they have a good team, but I don't feel like they're going to be good enough. Because unless Elias Pettersson plays up to where he played like last season at the end, I feel like this team has no hope because JT Miller is possibly going to get traded. If he stays and he plays great, that's great. Like they're definitely going to possibly make the playoffs. But if he gets traded and then they don't have anybody to replace him, because Brock Besser hasn't had a good season in a little while, Bo Horvat's not like the great scorer like he could be, and then they have not too much depth, honestly. Their defense is good with Quinn Hughes, and then they have a bunch of other players, and they have one of the better goalies in the league with Thatcher Demko. But I just feel like they just need to put it all together and then make sure that they just win the close games, honestly, because they lost a lot of close games last year. And then, of course, they lost a few blowouts when they were coached by Travis Green, which didn't help. But I feel like they're a team that always is right there, and then they lose the close games. Vegas Golden Knights, I definitely feel like they're playoff contenders. I know Robin Lehner is out for the season, but I feel like Logan Thompson could definitely play really good. And the backup's pretty good, too. I don't remember his name. I think it's Brossois. I'm not going to be 100% on that. But they do have a good defense. They have Alec Martinez. They have Alex Pietrangelo. They have Shea Theodore. Like, a team like that should not lose games. I know they got rid of Max Pacioretty, but he wasn't really going to start the season anyways. They have Jack Eichel. They have William Karlsson. They have Mark Stone. Like, they have so much good depth. All that matters, if they stay healthy, they're definitely, like, they could be Stanley Cup contenders, honestly. Like, that's the way how good Vegas could be. It's just that they need to put all together and make sure that no one gets hurt. Washington, I feel like, are going to have playoff chances. I honestly feel like they're a little bit of an aging team, like I said with Pittsburgh. Backstrom's hurt, so he's not going to be playing. Carlson's getting up there in age. Kuznetsov had a really good season last year, but he's very inconsistent. TJ Oshie's getting older. Ovechkin's still great, but he's getting older. They had a really good season last year. I don't see them replicating that, even though they did add a really good goalie in Darcy Kemper. But I just personally don't feel like they're going to be as good as they were last season, and I definitely could see them losing a lot of games just because of like how bad like they could be because of their age, and they might not be able to like keep up with the younger guys. But I do feel like they do have a chance to make the playoffs, like all the other teams in this like part. But that's another reason why I feel like just the age and the fact that like they could be, getting slower and not being able to play as good because they don't have as many young players as other teams do coming up. But I do feel like they do have a chance to make the playoffs, obviously. So the last team we got the Winnipeg Jets. I had the Winnipeg Jets missing the playoffs. Connor Hellebuck wasn't as good last season. He's definitely the best player on the team by far, but he didn't have a great season last season. Josh Morrissey is probably one of their best defensemen, and he didn't play really that good last season. And it's kind of hard for like a guy that usually is like a top 4 guy to be your top guy. But he manages. He's a really good player. They do have the line of Kyle Connor, Mark Scheifele, Blake Wheeler, which is a very bad defensive line, and they don't play any defense at all, honestly, let's be honest. And then they have a lot of good depth, but I just feel like because they missed the playoffs last year, like they're talking about like a fire sale of the team or whatever, and I just feel like there's a possibility that like a lot of players, and then like they had the controversy where Blake Wheeler got stripped of his captaincy. And I definitely feel like that could be like a problem with the season, and then like no leadership or whatever, and then like they just spiral out of control and then just stop playing as good as they could be. But I just personally feel like they don't have the heart, and that's the reason why they won't be making the playoffs this season. So yeah, that's pretty much it. That's pretty much my list. I feel like it's pretty good. I feel like there could be a case for a few of these teams, like Detroit being down here and maybe like LA being up there. But I'm going to revise it really quick, and I feel like I'm going to like probably disagree with the same list that I have. So if you guys have a different list, please show me your list. I would love to see it. So I was going to do the awards in this video, but I've decided to do it to the next video because this video is already pretty long by itself. So I'm going to be doing the awards in the next video. I'm going to edit out the part where I say I'm going to do the awards so you guys don't think I'm lying to you. But so yeah, I'm going to be doing the awards in the next video. And yeah, so like I said, if you guys enjoyed the list, please smash the like button. Don't forget to subscribe, and I'll see you guys in the next one.